The blood-red sunset painted the dusty horizon of Knight's Ferry, California, as Hannah Sinclair clutched the crumpled telegram in her trembling hands. The year was 1873, and the words blurred before her eyes through a veil of tears. Father pass stop. Bank foreclosing stop. Must vacate family home immediately stop. In that moment, everything she had ever known crumbled like the dry earth beneath her worn boots. Hannah had just turned 22, and with her mother long dead and her younger brother lost to typhoid fever 2 winters past, she was completely alone in the world. The sheltered daughter of a failed merchant now had nothing but the clothes on her back and whatever she could fit in a single trunk. 2 weeks later, Hannah found herself standing on the rickety platform of the Knight's Ferry station, her face streaked with trail dust and desperation. She'd spent her last dollars on the stagecoach fare from San Francisco, where the family home had been sold to cover her father's debts. The small town sprawled before her, a collection of wooden buildings and corrals nestled against the rolling foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains. "Miss? You look like you could use some assistance." The voice was deep and gentle, cutting through her haze of worry. Hannah turned to find a tall man with sun-bronzed skin and eyes the color of a clear summer sky. His broad shoulders were draped in a dusty trail coat, and a well-worn cowboy hat shaded his face. The silver star pinned to his vest caught the fading sunlight. "I'm Sheriff Adam Wilcox," he said, extending a weathered hand. "Don't recall seeing you in Knight's Ferry before." Hannah swallowed the lump in her throat. "Hannah Sinclair, sir. I've come looking for work. Any work." Sheriff Wilcox's eyes softened with understanding. He'd seen that look of quiet desperation before too many times in this harsh land. "What skills do you have, Miss Sinclair?" "I can read and write. I know arithmetic. I can sew and cook reasonably well." Her voice faltered. "My father was a merchant, but I never had to work for your living," he finished for her. "Times are tough all over. The mercantile might need help, but Old Man Thatcher pays poorly. The saloon's always hiring girls, but I couldn't." Hannah's cheeks flushed crimson. Adam Wilcox nodded, respect flickering in his eyes. "I wouldn't suggest it anyway. Tell you what, the boarding house has a room. I can put in a word with Mrs. Peterson. Maybe you can work for your keep until something more suitable comes along." Hannah followed the sheriff through the dusty street, painfully aware of curious eyes tracking her progress. Mrs. Peterson's boarding house was a 2-story clapboard building with a sagging porch and faded curtains. The landlady herself was a pinch-faced woman with shrewd eyes that assessed Hannah like she was evaluating a questionable cut of meat. "I don't run a charity, Sheriff," Mrs. Peterson said after hearing Hannah's situation. "Girl looks too genteel for real work." "I'll work hard," Hannah insisted, desperation edging into her voice. "Please, I just need a chance." Mrs. Peterson's thin lips tightened. "One night. That's all I can spare. Then you'll need to pay or move on." That night, Hannah lay sleepless on the narrow bed, listening to the sounds of the unfamiliar town, raucous laughter from the saloon, the occasional gunshot, the whinny of horses. Tears leaked silently from the corners of her eyes. She had one day to find work or face sleeping on the streets. Morning came all too quickly. Hannah washed her face in the chipped basin, donned her second-best dress, and ventured out to find employment. By midday, her spirits had fallen as low as they could go. The mercantile had no positions, the school had a teacher, and the dressmaker had just taken on an apprentice. No one wanted an inexperienced city girl, no matter how desperately she needed the work. Hungry and increasingly frantic, Hannah found herself standing outside the telegraph office just as a commotion erupted from across the street. A man was half dragging, half carrying a woman from the saloon. The woman's face was bruised, her lips split and bleeding. "You're done here, Molly," the man shouted, throwing her roughly to the ground. "Pack your things and be gone by sundown." Without thinking, Hannah rushed forward. "Stop it. You're hurting her." The man, bull-necked with a face flushed from drink and anger, rounded on Hannah. "Mind your business, girl, unless you want the same." "That's enough, Dixon." Sheriff Wilcox materialized between them, his hand resting casually on his holstered revolver. "Get back inside before I decide to have a closer look at what else goes on in that establishment of yours." Dixon spat in the dirt but retreated into the saloon. The sheriff helped the woman to her feet while Hannah gathered the scattered belongings. "Thank you kindly," the woman, Molly, said. Her eyes were dull with defeat. "Not that it matters much. I've got nowhere to go now." "What happened?" Hannah asked. "Boss caught me skimming drinks. Times are hard, and I got a sick sister in Stockton." Molly shrugged. "My own fault." Sheriff Wilcox sighed, removing his hat to run a hand through his sandy hair. "Molly, you know I can't." "It's all right, Sheriff. I'll manage." But the tremor in her voice suggested otherwise. Hannah looked between them, an idea forming. "Miss Molly, do you have a position at the farm you mentioned to me yesterday?" "Sheriff?" Adam Wilcox's brow furrowed momentarily before understanding dawned in his eyes. "The Rocking W? My ranch." "Yes, that one." Hannah met his gaze steadily. "You mentioned needing help with the housekeeping." He hadn't mentioned any such thing, and they both knew it. But something in Hannah's pleading eyes made Adam nod slowly. "Right, the position. It's available if you're still interested." "I am," Hannah said quickly. "Very interested." Later that afternoon, as they rode in Adam's wagon toward the ranch several miles outside of town, Hannah finally let herself breathe. The sheriff sat beside her, handling the reins with practiced ease. "That was kind of you back there," he said after a long silence. "Stepping in for Molly." Hannah stared at the distant mountains. It wasn't kindness so much as understanding what it's like to have nowhere to go. Still, not everyone would have done it. He glanced at her. "You should know, I don't actually need a housekeeper." Hannah's heart sank. "Oh, I've got a small place. I manage it myself. Been doing so since my wife died 5 years ago." "I see." Hannah's voice was small. "I can ask to be let off at the next farm we pass. Perhaps they—" "That's not what I meant." Adam adjusted his hat, looking uncomfortable. "What I'm saying is, I don't need a housekeeper, but I could use a wife." Hannah's head snapped toward him. "Excuse me?" "Not like that," he said quickly, his tanned face reddening beneath his weather-beaten features. "It's a business arrangement. I need someone to help with the cooking and cleaning to make the place a proper home again. In return, you get food, shelter, and my protection." He paused. "And my name if you want it." "You're proposing marriage to a complete stranger." Hannah couldn't keep the shock from her voice. Adam's eyes remained fixed on the trail ahead. "Out here, practical arrangements happen all the time. It's survival. You need a place to live. I need a woman's touch around the ranch. We help each other." He finally looked at her. "No other expectations. You'd have your own room. If you want to leave after the winter, I wouldn't stop you." Hannah sat in stunned silence. Marriage to a man she just met? It sounded insane. Yet what were her alternatives? Sleeping on the streets of Knight's Ferry? Turning to prostitution like so many desperate women before her? "Why would you do this?" she finally asked. "You don't know me." Adam's expression softened. "I know enough. You stood up for Molly when no one else would. That tells me about your character." He hesitated. "And I've been alone a long time, Miss Sinclair. The ranch is doing well, but an empty house is still empty, no matter how many cattle you run." The Rocking W came into view as they crested a small rise, a neat white farmhouse with green shutters, several outbuildings, and corrals holding horses and cattle. It wasn't grand, but it was well kept, with a vegetable garden to one side and a chicken coop behind the house. Smoke curled lazily from the stone chimney. "It's lovely," Hannah said softly. "It's not much, but it's mine. Paid for. No bank can take it." Adam brought the wagon to a halt in front of the house. "You don't have to decide now. Stay a few days. Help around the place. See if you think you could make a life here." Hannah stepped down from the wagon, looking at the ranch that could be her salvation or her prison. "And if I decide to accept your proposal, then we ride into town, see the preacher and make it legal." Adam's blue eyes were steady. "Like I said, no expectations beyond keeping house. You'd be safe here." That night, Hannah slept in a small but clean bedroom that smelled faintly of lavender and soap. Adam had taken the barn, insisting she have the house to herself to think. She lay awake for hours, weighing her options, which were painfully few. By morning, she had made her decision. When Adam came in for breakfast, she had already stoked the stove and was frying bacon from the cold box. "I accept," she said without preamble. "Your proposal. I'll marry you, Mr. Wilcox." Adam paused in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded once, removing his hat. "All right then. We'll go to town tomorrow." They were married the following afternoon in a brief ceremony at the small church in Knight's Ferry. The preacher looked between them curiously but asked no questions. 2 ranchers' wives served as witnesses, clucking sympathetically when they learned Hannah had no family present. "It's a hard country for a woman alone," one of them whispered, patting Hannah's hand. "The sheriff's a good man. You could do worse." That night, true to his word, Adam slept in the spare room while Hannah took the main bedroom. She lay rigid beneath the quilt, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the ranch, the distant lowing of cattle, the whisper of wind through the cottonwoods, the occasional creak of the house settling. Her wedding ring, a simple gold band that had belonged to Adam's mother, felt foreign on her finger. "What have I done?" she whispered to the darkness. But she knew the answer. She had survived. For now, the days settled into a rhythm. Hannah rose early, prepared breakfast, tended the chickens, worked in the vegetable garden, cleaned the house, and cooked dinner. Adam went about his sheriff's duties in town 3 days a week and worked the ranch the rest of the time. They were polite strangers sharing a house, eating meals in comfortable silence or making small talk about the weather or the condition of the cattle. After 2 weeks, Hannah found a small box of books in the attic, novels, poetry, even some science and history texts. When she asked Adam about them, his expression grew distant. "They were Elizabeth's, my first wife's. She was a schoolteacher before we married." He hesitated. "You're welcome to read them." That night, Hannah opened Pride and Prejudice and found a pressed wildflower marking a page. Inside the cover was an inscription. "To my beloved Elizabeth, may our love story be even more enduring than Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth's. Forever yours, Adam." For the first time, Hannah wondered about the man she had married. He'd spoken so little of his past, of the woman he had loved and lost. She began to notice other things too, how he always thanked her for meals, how he removed his boots at the door to keep from tracking dirt on her clean floors, how his eyes sometimes followed her when he thought she wasn't looking. The first real change came a month into their arrangement. Hannah was hanging laundry when she heard hoofbeats approaching. 3 riders appeared, rough-looking men with unshaven faces and hard eyes. The leader, a tall man with a scar running down his cheek, reined in his horse. "Well, what have we here? Didn't know Wilcox had such a pretty little wife." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Where's your husband, madam?" Hannah's heart hammered in her chest. "In town. He's the sheriff, as I'm sure you know." "Sure do. That's why we're paying a friendly visit." The man dismounted, his spurs jangling. "Been meaning to talk to him about some cattle that went missing. Thought they might have wandered onto his property. I haven't seen any stray cattle, Hannah said, backing toward the house. You'll have to come back when my husband returns. The man took a step toward her, but froze at the sound of a rifle being cocked. Adam stood on the porch, Winchester leveled at the intruder's chest. That's far enough, Jennings, Adam said, his voice hard as steel. You and your boys turn around and ride out. Now. The man called Jennings raised his hands in mock surrender. Just being neighborly, Sheriff. Meeting the new Mrs. Wilcox. You've met her. Now go. After a tense moment, Jennings remounted his horse. We'll be seeing you around, Sheriff. You and your pretty wife. The threat in his voice was unmistakable as the three men rode away. That night, Adam sat Hannah down and told her about the Jennings gang cattle rustlers who'd been operating in the area for months. I've been building a case against them. They know it, and they're trying to intimidate me. Hannah's hands trembled slightly. Will they come back? Adam's jaw tightened. Not if they're smart, but just in case. He placed a small revolver on the table. I want you to learn how to use this. The next day, Adam took her behind the barn and patiently taught her how to load, aim, and fire the revolver. Hannah's first shot went wide, the recoil shocking her wrist. But by the end of the hour, she was hitting the cans he'd set up more often than not. You're a natural, he said, and something in his voice made her cheeks warm with pleasure. That evening as they ate dinner, Hannah found the courage to ask about Elizabeth. Adam was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. She died in childbirth, he finally said. Her and our son. I wasn't here was chasing some outlaws up near Sonora. By the time I got back. He shook his head. The doctor said there was nothing anyone could have done. I'm so sorry, Hannah whispered. After that, I threw myself into being sheriff. Figured if I couldn't save my own family, maybe I could help keep other folks safe. He looked up at her. Never thought I'd marry again. Didn't see the point. And now? Hannah asked softly. Adam studied her across the table. Now I'm remembering what it's like to have someone to come home to. The air between them changed after that night, charged with something unspoken. Adam began to linger over breakfast, telling her stories about his days as a young ranch hand, about his time fighting in the war, about his dreams of expanding the Rocking W someday. Hannah found herself sharing two memories of her childhood in San Francisco, her love of reading, her secret desire to perhaps teach someday. The first time Adam touched her, it was an accident. They both reached for the coffee pot at the same time, and his hand covered hers. He pulled away as if burned, mumbling an apology. Hannah's skin tingled for hours afterward. As autumn crept over the land, painting the distant hills with gold and amber, Hannah's feelings for her husband of convenience grew increasingly complicated. She found herself watching him as he worked in the yard, admiring the strength in his shoulders, the kindness in his eyes when he spoke to his horses. At night, she sometimes lay awake wondering what it would be like if he came to her room, if he held her in his arms. The Jennings gang made good on their threat in late October. Hannah was alone at the ranch, Adam having been called to town on sheriff's business. She was kneading bread dough when she heard horses approach. Looking out the window, she saw 5 riders, including Jennings himself, dismounting in the yard. Her hands shaking, Hannah retrieved the revolver from where Adam had shown her to keep it. Taking a deep breath, she stepped onto the porch, the gun hidden in the folds of her apron. Mr. Jennings, she called. My husband isn't here. Jennings smiled coldly. That's why we came, Mrs. Wilcox. Thought we'd have a private chat. I have nothing to say to you. Hannah fought to keep her voice steady. Well, we got plenty to say to you. Jennings took a step forward. See, your husband's been causing us trouble. Thought maybe if something happened to his pretty new wife, he might back off. Hannah pulled out the revolver, aiming it straight at Jennings's chest. "I think you should leave." The men laughed, but there was uncertainty in their eyes. "You know how to use that little gun, lady?" one of them called. "My husband taught me well." Hannah's hands were surprisingly steady now. "I won't miss at this distance." Jennings's smile faltered. "You shoot me, the others will kill you." "Maybe." Hannah cocked the hammer. "But you'll still be dead." A tense silence followed, broken by the distant sound of hoofbeats. All heads turned to see a cloud of dust on the road riders approaching fast. The Jennings gang scrambled for their horses. "This isn't over," Jennings snarled as he mounted up. Hannah kept the gun trained on them until they disappeared over the ridge. Only then did her knees give way, and she sank onto the porch steps, shaking uncontrollably. Minutes later, Adam and 3 deputies thundered into the yard. He was off his horse before it fully stopped, running to her. "Hannah!" He knelt before her, his eyes frantic as they searched her face. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, still clutching the revolver. "Jennings, 5 of them, they said. They said they wanted to hurt me to get to you." Adam's face hardened into something dangerous. "Tyler," he called to one of the deputies. "Take the others and track them. I want to know which direction they headed." As the deputies rode out, Adam gently took the gun from Hannah's white-knuckled grip. "You're safe now. I'm here." "I almost shot him," she whispered. "I would have." Adam cupped her face in his hands. "You were brave. So brave." And then, to her shock, he pressed his lips to her forehead in a tender kiss. "I'm sorry I wasn't here." That night, Adam insisted on sleeping downstairs instead of in his room, keeping watch in case the Jennings gang returned. Hannah brought him a blanket and pillow, lingering in the doorway of the parlor. "Adam," she said softly, "thank you." He looked up at her, his blue eyes intense in the lamplight. "For what?" "For giving me a home. For teaching me to defend myself. For..." She hesitated. "For making me feel safe." Something shifted in his expression. "Hannah," he began, then stopped himself. "You should get some rest." But neither of them slept much that night. The following week brought the first serious snowfall of the season. Hannah woke to a world transformed, the ranch blanketed in pristine white, icicles hanging from the eaves like crystal daggers. She wrapped a shawl around her shoulders and stepped onto the porch, her breath misting in the frigid air. Adam emerged from the barn, his arms laden with firewood. He paused when he saw her, and for a moment, they simply looked at each other across the snow-covered yard. Something had changed between them since the incident with Jennings, a new awareness, a tension that hummed like a tautly drawn wire. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said, nodding at the snow-covered landscape. "Yes," Hannah replied, though she wasn't looking at the scenery anymore. "It is." That evening, as they sat before the crackling fireplace, Adam cleared his throat. "I got a telegram today. The Jennings gang was caught trying to rob a stagecoach near Sacramento. They'll be going to prison for a long time." Relief flooded through Hannah. "That's wonderful news. It means you're safe now." Adam stared into the flames. "Our arrangement. You said you'd stay through the winter. But if you want to leave now, I'd understand." Hannah's heart stuttered. "Do you want me to leave?" "No." The word came quickly, forcefully. Adam met her eyes. "I don't want you to go. Ever." "Then ask me to stay," she whispered. Adam rose from his chair and knelt before her, taking her hands in his. "Hannah Wilcox, I know our marriage began as an arrangement for survival. But somewhere along the way I fell in love with you. Stay with me, not because you need to, but because you want to." Tears blurred Hannah's vision. "I want to stay. I love you too." When Adam's lips met hers, It was like coming home to a place she'd never been before. His kiss was gentle at first, then deepened with a hunger that matched her own. When he finally pulled away, his eyes were dark with desire. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice rough. In answer, Hannah took his hand and led him upstairs to their bedroom. Later, as they lay entwined beneath the quilts, Adam traced lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "I never thought I'd feel this way again," he confessed. "After Elizabeth died, I closed that part of myself off." "I never thought I'd feel this way at all," Hannah said. "My father wanted me to marry a business associate, a man 3 times my age. I refused. That's part of why he cut me off when his business failed." She nestled closer against Adam's chest. "I never regretted that decision, but I never imagined I'd find love in a marriage of convenience." Adam's arms tightened around her. "I want to give you everything, Hannah. Everything you deserve. I have everything I need right here," she assured him. But Adam was determined to make good on his promise. Over the coming months, he poured himself into making the ranch a true home for Hannah. He ordered books from San Francisco, novels, poetry collections, histories, and scientific texts that would arrive with the monthly supply wagon, each one bringing a new light to Hannah's eyes. Spring brought new beginnings in more ways than one. The meadows burst into wildflowers, calves were born, and Hannah discovered she was with child. When she told Adam, he lifted her off her feet and spun her around the kitchen, laughing with pure joy before setting her down with sudden concern. "I'm sorry, did I hurt you?" "The baby?" Hannah laughed, placing his hand on her still flat stomach. "We're fine. Both of us." As Hannah's pregnancy progressed, Adam became increasingly protective. He hired a young ranch hand named Timothy to help with the heavier chores, insisting Hannah rest more. When she protested that she wasn't an invalid, Adam grinned and kissed her. "Humor me," he said. "Let me take care of you." In the summer heat, Adam surprised her by converting the small shed behind the house into a bathhouse, complete with a large copper tub he'd special ordered from Sacramento. The first time Hannah sank into a steaming bath, fragrant with lavender oil, she nearly wept with gratitude. "This must have cost a fortune," she said when Adam checked on her. He shrugged. "You're worth every penny." As her due date approached, Adam's nightmares began. Hannah would wake to find him sitting bolt upright, his body slick with sweat, his breathing ragged. She knew he was reliving Elizabeth's death, fearing history would repeat itself. "It won't happen again," she assured him, cradling his face in her hands. "I'm strong. Our baby is strong." But Adam took no chances. He rode to Sonora and convinced the best doctor in the region to stay at a nearby ranch for the month surrounding Hannah's due date, paying him handsomely for the privilege. When Hannah's labor began on a crisp October morning, Adam was beside himself with worry. He paced outside the bedroom where the doctor and a midwife attended to Hannah, flinching at every cry of pain that escaped through the door. After 12 grueling hours, the piercing wail of a newborn cut through the night. Adam froze, his heart in his throat, until the door finally opened and the doctor emerged, wiping his hands. "Congratulations, Sheriff," the older man said with a tired smile. "You have a healthy daughter, and your wife is just fine." Adam nearly collapsed with relief. When he entered the bedroom, Hannah was propped against the pillows, her face glowing with exhaustion and joy as she cradled a tiny bundle in her arms. "Meet your daughter," she said softly as Adam approached the bed. "I thought we might call her Elizabeth." Adam's eyes filled with tears as he gently took the infant in his arms. She had a shock of dark hair and, when she blinked up at him, eyes the same brilliant blue as his own. "Elizabeth," he repeated, his voice thick with emotion. "It's perfect." As little Elizabeth grew, so did the rocking W. Adam used his savings to buy the neighboring property when old Mr. Johnson decided to move east to live with his daughter. The expanded ranch meant more cattle, more hands to hire, and more prosperity. Adam stepped down as sheriff to focus on the ranch full-time, though he still served as a deputy when needed. Hannah found her purpose beyond being a wife and mother when she began teaching the children of the ranch hands and neighboring farms. What started as informal lessons at her kitchen table evolved into a small schoolhouse Adam built for her 3rd wedding anniversary. "Every great ranch needs its own school," he said when she protested the expense. "Besides, our Elizabeth will need somewhere to learn her letters in a few years." By the time Elizabeth was 5, she had a brother, James, and the Rocking W had become one of the most successful ranches in the county. The house had been expanded to include a proper library for Hannah, filled with hundreds of books, and a music room with the piano Adam had hauled all the way from San Francisco as a surprise for her 30th birthday. "You don't even play," Hannah had said, running her fingers reverently over the polished keys. "But you said you always wanted to learn," Adam replied. "And I want our children to grow up with music in their home." On their 10th wedding anniversary, Adam took Hannah to San Francisco, her first return to the city of her birth, since she'd fled in desperation all those years ago. They stayed in the finest hotel, attended the opera, and dined in elegant restaurants where Hannah was addressed as Mrs. Wilcox, with the deference due to a wealthy rancher's wife. One afternoon, they passed a familiar storefront, her father's old business, now a fashionable ladies' boutique. Hannah paused, studying the transformed facade. "Do you regret it?" Adam asked quietly. "Leaving all this behind?" Hannah turned to him, taking in the face she had come to know better than her own, the crinkles at the corners of his eyes, the streaks of silver now mingling with the sandy hair at his temples, the steadfast love in his gaze. "Not for a single moment," she said, and meant it with every fiber of her being. That night in their hotel room, Adam presented her with a velvet box containing a diamond necklace that caught the lamplight in dazzling rainbows. "Adam, it's too much," Hannah protested. "Nothing is too much for you." He fastened it around her neck, his fingers lingering on her skin. "When you came to Knight's Ferry, you had nothing. You married me for survival." His voice grew husky. "I've spent every day since trying to make sure you live in comfort." "It was never about the comfort," Hannah said, turning in his arms. "It was about you, your kindness, your heart." She traced his beloved features with gentle fingers. "I married for survival, yes, but I stayed for love." As the years passed, the Rocking W continued to flourish. Elizabeth grew into a beautiful, headstrong young woman with her father's determination and her mother's compassion. James showed Adam's natural affinity for ranching, eagerly learning everything he could about cattle and horses. And the unexpected blessing came when Hannah, at 38, gave birth to their 3rd child, a son they named Samuel, whose arrival sent Adam into another frenzy of protective care that made Hannah both exasperated and deeply touched. "I'm not made of glass," she reminded him as he insisted on carrying her downstairs nearly 2 weeks after Samuel's birth. "Humor an old man," Adam said, though at 45 he was hardly old. "Let me take care of the woman I love." The 20th anniversary of their marriage coincided with Elizabeth's wedding to the son of a neighboring rancher. As Hannah watched her daughter exchange vows in the same small church where she and Adam had made their practical arrangement 2 decades earlier, she reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. From desperate survival to abundant prosperity. From strangers to soulmates. From an empty house to a home overflowing with love and laughter. After the celebration, as twilight painted the sky in shades of purple and gold, Hannah found Adam standing alone on the porch of their home, gazing out at the empire they had built together. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked, slipping her arm through his. Adam smiled down at her, the love in his eyes as fresh as it had been on the day he first told her of his feelings. "I was just thinking about that frightened young woman who stepped off the stagecoach in Knight's Ferry all those years ago. If someone had told her then what her life would become, she wouldn't have believed it," Hannah finished for him. "Not in 1,000 years." Adam drew her close, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Thank you for saying yes, for taking a chance on a lonely sheriff with a small ranch and big dreams." Hannah rested her head against his shoulder, savoring the solid strength that had been her foundation for 20 years. "Thank you for seeing something in me worth saving, for giving me not just survival, but a life filled with more joy than I ever thought possible." As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, Adam and Hannah Wilcox stood together on the porch of the home they had built not just of wood and stone, but of love, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment to each other's happiness. And though neither spoke the words aloud, both knew with absolute certainty that the arrangement that began in desperation had become the greatest blessing of their lives. Hannah had married for survival, but Adam had spent forever making sure she lived in comfort. Not just the comfort of material things, but the deeper comfort of being truly, completely loved. In the distance, a coyote called to its mate, and the wind whispered through the cottonwoods. Another day was ending on the rocking W, but the love story that had begun with a desperate proposal continued on, as enduring as the mountains that stood sentinel over the valley they called home.